Okay. Well, happy Thursday, everyone. Happy to have everyone on. Actually, sorry, I need to start it.
Okay.
Okay. Thursday, everyone. We're so happy to have Francine back with her mini series on all things related to HR. We're so happy to have you here. We apologize we started a few minutes late. Again, this is the New Mexico Minority Business Development Agency. We support business owners with different sizes, different backgrounds throughout the state of New Mexico and beyond with everything related to business. And a question that we got a lot was they had, business owners issues with their employees or the documentation wasn't on time. And we thought, okay, let's bring an expert on HR to let us know about everything. And the beauty of all these sessions is that it's recorded. So we will have access to the PowerPoint and we will send it out to those that have registered. And then, of course, all of those in the future can just watch it on YouTube. So thank you again, Francine, for being here. And I'll let you take over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gabriela, for the intro. I'm very excited to be here. So, just a little bit about myself. My name's Francine Campos. I've worked in HR my entire life. I only know HR, which is kind of nice. I've been in HR since high school as an intern and just kind of worked my way up. And, I'm really excited to be here just to kind of really show what happens in HR. So I'm going to share my screen, just get my PowerPoint up. And slideshow. All righty. So today we're going to jump in. We're going to talk about performance management, how to give feedback, and also how to give tough feedback. We know that is a huge thing for many people, personal and work-wise. And then we're going to talk a little bit about conflict resolution, kind of more in that feedback realm of how to give, tough feedback to your team members, or maybe your boss, other people that you work with. So just a quick run through of our agenda. We're going to talk again about performance management as whole, kind of feedback, conflict resolutions, and then of course we'll open it up for any questions. So let's just jump right into it. Performance management. The way that I look at performance management, very simple. It is the management of people and giving them feedback about their performance or anything. We say performance, but it could be feedback on maybe their fit with the culture, maybe they said something that's inappropriately, anything, right? But you're managing that entire process. And so with that, you're aligning these individuals, your employees, with your company's objectives, your company goals. It just facilitates employee development and growth. And most importantly, it promotes accountability and fairness. So you're really setting those clear performance standards, you're setting those expectations, and we'll talk about what that looks like. But when you're setting those expectations, you're really promoting accountability, right? You're telling your employee, I expect this from you, and I'll check in you and make sure that you're doing it. But I expect that from you. You need to bring that back to me as a business owner. So it's really just it's a crucial process, and it really maximizes individual and your company's potential. When your company's on point and also your employees, just that alignment really just, there's nothing more, right? Just constant feedback. There's nothing more that could be done. I always say you're giving feedback when you need it, but you're also facilitating that development and growth that every single employee needs. I put this quote in here a little bit. I just thought it was kind of, encouraging, but also very relatable. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak, but courage is also what it takes it to sit down and listen. I thought that was very important, especially, having the courage to talk to your employees or having the courage to set these goals and check in with them. Maybe you need to let them know that they're not doing so great, but you feel comfortable and confident to do so. I did put here just a simple timeline. It's very simple, but it gives an example of how performance is managed. And this is just a year. I just threw in something like, January is when we set the company goals, and it could be as easily as we want to hit a 15 mark revenue, or a lot of companies this past year is we want to start to automate, we want to start to use AI a little bit more. How can we incorporate that? So you typically would want to do that in the beginning of the year. If it's your physical year, that works as well. July, it's just a full year process is what I'm trying to get across with this. So January, you're going to set those goals. About 4 months later, Q1, you're going to check in for sure. You're going to have your mid-review mid-year. You're going to check in again Q3, and then you're going to have a review. So this timeline could be used with any projects, any goals. Some goals don't last as long as a year. Sometimes they're just a few months. So this will differ, but it just really shows, the beginning, setting the goals, checking in multiple times, and then actually doing a review and see what worked, what didn't work. The next thing that I want to talk about is just feedback. Just feedback, getting feedback, being able to accept feedback, but also feel comfortable to give feedback. And that means good and bad. So there's a feedback process. I always say there's a process for everything, especially in HR. It just makes things flow easily. So, feedback, just getting feedback from your manager, and this, again, think of this both ways, as a manager, as an employee. So you have your manager, you're going to be giving feedback to your employee, or again, your employee giving feedback to your manager. So you're going to talk about that, right? You're going to ask questions, you're going to respond professionally. You want to keep these, no matter how heated it gets, be professional and let emotions, kind of push to the side. And we kind of talked about that the last seminar, just really focusing on the task and what needs to get done at your company. And then some action planning. What are we going to do? What are we going to do now that we have set the tone of what needs to be happen? How are we going to get it done? So again, it definitely fits the same timeline that we just looked at. It's just a different way of looking at it. So you're going to have those action plannings. You're probably going to check in Q1, Q2, possibly Q3. And then again, you're going to follow up. You're going to visit. You're going to revisit. How did it go? Did it make sense? Is there anything I could have done better? How was my communication? Was I clear? Was I concise? These are the times to really check in, and how did that action plan, did it work? Everything, there's so many projects, or anything that's kind of associated with those projects. You always want to make sure you have a follow-up to really focus on how did that go and how should we move forward. So I also added some strategies in here. I do know, being in HR for as long as I have, a number one thing that clients ask for is, how should I give feedback? And it's usually related to tough feedback, right? Like, how do I let my employee know that they're a great fit culturally, but maybe they're struggling a little bit on the performance side? So this is very common. This never goes away with time. It's always tough. But the more you practice and the more you get information, the more comfortable you're going to be doing it. So step one, schedule your regular meetings. And I say regular in bold because this is really the important piece of this. No employee wants to wait 6 months, maybe even a quarter, a year, definitely, to get feedback on their performance. Your employees deserve better than that as well. You need to make sure you give them constant feedback. And if that's struggle for you as a manager or a business owner, just schedule those meetings out. I have meetings once a month with the team just to check, how are things going? How are those goals that I set for you? Do you need help? Do you need anything to get it done? Also being specific and constructive. You don't, again, want any emotions to get mixed in what you're trying to come across. So focus specifically on what you need to talk about. Give clear examples. That always helps. And of course, avoid generalizations or anything personal, right? You don't want to add, when I came to work, you didn't say good morning to me, and then it led us to here. That's very personal. Maybe someone's having a bad day, you might want to address it, but that's not, you're going to sit with them and set up some goals for that, maybe just talking to them. So keep it specific and work related, obviously, very, very specific. Encourage open communication. That kind of goes back to those one-on-one meetings. The more comfortable you feel, just flow of information, the better. The best boss I ever had, Eileen Colina, I was an intern. She gave me feedback immediately. If I did something that didn't sit well with her, she told me. If I also did something great, she told me. There was no waiting. And that's really what your goal is. You want to create that environment of openness. I have something, I'm going to tell you. Share your thoughts, share your concerns, but also let your employees know that you're open to that. It's really, really important to encourage that communication, because if employees feel comfortable to talk to you about their problems, they're going to talk to you about their problems. They're not going to talk to someone else about their problems and maybe have some culture issues there. And then again, put it in every slide, follow up and offer support. Following up, if there's an employee that you give a goal to and they seem like they get it, like, yes, they get it. Q1 comes around, maybe they didn't get anything done. That's usually a good indicator that maybe they didn't understand the task. So you really want to touch base with them, offer training too. That's a big part of this. Maybe you gave them a task that they just are unsure of, or they need some improvement in that area. So offer training, offer support, offer mentoring. It's just so amazing what you could do to really set the tone for your employees and their career. I did put at the bottom, providing effective feedback is essential for employee development and fostering a positive work environment. Feedback, again, effective feedback. This is not, you looked at me wrong. This is, I see your growth, you're doing great, but maybe we need to work on this a little bit. I'm going to help you get there. Imagine someone telling you that and investing the time in that growth. You'll never forget them, just like I never will forget what Eileen helped me get through. I also added some feedback methods. I think this is important to add. And the reason why I added it is everything is changing now. We have Zoom, we have Teams, there's so many platforms to get feedback from your employees. If you Google feedback platforms for HR, you'll be inundated. So you really want to fit what fits for your company. Is it one-on-one? Is it, is it very personalized? That's great. It allows for great feedback, great conversation. But if you have 60 employees, you're probably not going to be able to do that because it's very time consuming. Surveys are great. They're anonymous. They're great, efficient way to get feedback. Just send it out, print it out. But typically you get low response rates. You don't really get a full view of what your company is trying to tell you. And it's very impersonal. It's just kind of, here's a survey, get it done if you can, and thank you. There's not really too much follow through with that. Peer feedback, I do think that's great, getting some feedback from their coworkers, maybe, their boss, anybody that works with them, not just the manager to employee. I always think it's great because it's different perspectives, right? You're a different manager, you're a different leader to possibly one person to the next, because you have to change that management style. The con with that, it could bring some bias, especially if they're friends out of work, and it adds this whole other layer. But I still am a huge supporter of that. Also, it could be a mixture of these things. At the consulting company that I own, we have created surveys for companies. We have set one-on-one surveys. So they come in the office, I meet with them, ask them some questions, but the intent is to get a survey filled. I also have 360 feedbacks, which is peer feedback, just a different name for it. It's just 360. Anybody that works with them gets some feedback. And it just gives you a really good generalized overview of how they are, again, opening up that communication. That's the goal here. Anyway, is it a survey? Is it these meetings? Is it the peer feedback? Any way that works for your culture is what you want to do. And really don't miss out on that opportunity. There's not very many opportunities where you get to speak to your team or get feedback from your company as a whole. Make sure you do that. And then again, the one-on-one meetings is just extremely important to open up that communication. So we'll go back a little bit of action planning. We talked about that a little earlier. So now we're giving feedback, right? And this is the action plan. You gave your feedback, you're talking about the issue or something that you would like to discuss, or possibly even a goal. Now you're planning how that's going to get done. So you had the initial meeting, you're going to create those measurable goals. And it could be as easy as get this done by this, or it could be get 10% done by January. You want to be specific and measurable and also make them achievable. You don't want to make it so unachievable that it's frustrating to your employees. Simple, again, simple, concise. This is what I want you to do. This is the goal, and this is how we can measure. And it's great for the manager, but also the employees, so they could start to see, the progress that they're making. Identify resources and support. Again, back to that training, mentorship, anything you need to get this done. This is a time to really support your employee in helping them achieve their goals. And also, it's just a great team building moment too. I always say that if you have any time with your employees where you get to work with them and work through problems, it just really creates this relationship between the two people. And it's just a great thing. And once you're on that level, a lot of great things could happen. Again, monitoring progress, providing feedback, ongoing feedback. That's how, whatever works for you. Is it the one-on-one? Is it the surveys? Is it just looking at those goals that we, talked about and looking at what how far we progressed? This is that part where we're really monitoring it. And then again, the end, the fun part, recognizing and these improvements or acknowledging that we hit these goals. This reinforcing positive behavior, this is your time to do it. Especially if they, you set this goal out and you're just like, I don't think they'll hit that goal. That's a stretch goal. And they do it. This is your time to let them shine. Send out the company email saying what they did. Celebrate them. I'm telling you, if you reinforce positive behavior, it is motivating to your employees. It literally is motivating. And if someone tells you you're doing a good job, you're going to want to you're going to do a harder job. Like, it's just how it works. So please make the time to celebrate and acknowledge those goals and what they meant. Again, the importance of the follow-up after giving the feedback. It's really, at the end of the day, really opening up that communication. But just to kind of go through it really quickly, we're going to set those clear expectations. Of course, we're going to schedule some follow-ups, and you could just schedule them all at once. When you're setting your goal, you could, tell your employee, I'm going to meet with you on these dates. Let's set the dates up so you know what to expect. And I also have it on my calendar. It encourages collaboration and feedback. You have this meeting coming up, what's going on. So just set that clear expectations and those follow-ups. And again, that timeline. Provide ongoing support and coaching, and again, celebrate. It's really about providing support, coaching, and just celebrating. That's the best way to put it. You really want to provide a culture for your employees where you're able to do these. And the goal is to have it constant, right? Initially, you set up a plan. We may be a little more professional driven. We have performance reviews or maybe quarterly reviews, whatever works for your culture. But then you really provide that support. And then again, just recognize that. And it's really great. So this is the tough part that I'm actually really excited to go through. I've presented on this many times to executives. Like I said, everybody struggles with conflict resolution. It never gets easier. It's just one of those things as human beings we struggle with. So I threw in a slide in there just to talk about the importance of these difficult conversations. Step right off the bat, it builds trust and transparency. Of course it does. You trust your boss, let's take the boss out of it. Let's just say employees. You trust your coworker. You want to have these discussions. Maybe there's something that they did that just, maybe messed up a project of yours, or maybe just didn't sit well with you. You want to be comfortable enough to tell them that. And it really does build that trust. Once you have that trust, it's just back and forth, again, good and bad. Just those conversations are free flowing. It also provides and facilitates growth and improvement. This is such a big part of this. Getting feedback and constructive feedbacks really allows these individuals and employees to grow in those areas that they're struggling. I struggled a lot with business writing in college. I had a professor tell me, I really need you to focus on this. You're not going to be what you think you're going to be if you don't focus on this. And it was harsh. It was very harsh. But I remembered what I needed to do to pass and to also just understand, how important it was. So it really facilitated growth for me and had me work towards what I want to be. And then it resolves conflicts. It is, it's as simple as that. Addressing these issues heads on, it just prevents misunderstanding. It prevents the escalation of, these emotional outbursts. It really does pave the way just to have these difficult conversations and leave it as just that, a difficult conversation that I had with you. Was it tough? Absolutely. But I learned something from it. I'm a better person from it. And the work environment is better because of it. It really resolves those conflicts right head on. If you let conflicts really sit in the workplace, it tends to really eat at your culture. I'm sure you've heard in the past, culture is kind of a cancer, right? It just grows. It starts with one area and just grows its way. That's how conflict works. Imagine, you had a disagreement with an employee and you weren't able to work that out. You probably are going to, maybe not work with them as effectively. You might have a little attitude with them. It just creates this environment that's unnecessary. Just address what you need to say. They understand it's a professional environment and we move on. It really is as simple as that. If you start to add the emotional, well, what if they get upset? What if this, what if that? You're never going to have the conversation. What doesn't allow the growth? It doesn't allow the improvement. So as a manager, if you want to see improvement in your employee, you're going to have a difficult conversation. If you decide that conversation is too difficult to have, you have to be okay with the improvement not happening. It is simple as that. One equals the other. So feel confident in your ability to have these conversations and to understand the person on the back end also understands that it's a professional conversation that needs to be had. So steps for conflict resolution. First step, same process. I love step process. Identify the sources of conflict. Let them know, what is it? What is the root cause of what's happening? Communicate to them. This is what has happened. Please be clear, of course, respectful. You want to keep this as professional as possible. As soon as you start to add some emotions, it's really tough to recover after that. Of course, find the common ground. I always think this is kind of that step where you had the tough conversation, you communicated clearly, and now you want to ask them, like, what do you think about this? How can we work together to get this to a better place? So you're creating those goals together and you're brainstorming those solutions together, which is awesome, right? It's not you telling your employee what they need to do. It is you helping them and mentoring them on how to be better employees. And so when you brainstorm those solutions, now you're going to agree on those solutions. So again, it's a mutual acceptable agreement. It does not have to be a boss to employee. This is just you have a conflict that you want to talk about. I want to add a little caveat to this. If your employee is at a step where you have had these conversations many times and things are not happening, you probably don't want to go through this process again. That's a different conversation that could possibly include termination. So this is not a solution for all conflicts. Remember, this is, you have a conflict with your employee, you just want to work it out and you want to get on the same common ground and you want to agree on some resolutions and keep going. This is what you do. But if you have a troublesome employee, that's again a different conversation that I would happily walk you through. So how to have a difficult conversation. And I did throw in there, employee, boss, coworker, anybody you need to have a conversation with. And this could be used in your personal life as well. So again, prepare. Choose the appropriate setting. This is much more important than we think. Free from distractions. When you're having a conversation with your employee, you do not want to check your phone. You don't want to check your Apple Watch. You are speaking to them. They have your undivided attention. And you really want to be as respectful as you can. Private, of course. Never have these conversations in a public setting. And you just really want to make it a neutral setting, maybe a conference room, maybe at Starbucks, something that's just neutral. You don't want it to be an office, you're sitting on your side of the desk and they're sitting on theirs, and it just needs to be just a neutral. You're giving them tough feedback, so you want them to feel comfortable. Of course, they always say start with the positive tone. There's a saying, if you give positive feedback, give positive feedback. In the middle, you could give a little negative. And the reason why is because people typically understand or hear those negative feedback much clearer than positive. It's just, again, how we are as human beings. So you always want to kind of start off, right? Things have been going great. I see that there's, probably a need for a little improvement in these areas, but so far we've been doing this and this has been working. So it really again, just start positive. It's going to be tough. Address the concerns directly. We talked about this before. You want to be clear. You want to articulate the specific concern that you want to address for improvement. Nothing else matters but that specific thing, because that's what we're talking about. Of course, listen actively, listen to their perspective, understand their viewpoint, let them talk and hear them. Don't, again, no watch looking, no phone, computer. Listen to them and understand where they're coming from. Propose solutions, again, work together. It's the same process as the last two. You really want to propose solutions together. It's just a problem-solving process that really does help. It's not you demanding something, it's you working together for that improvement. And again, follow up and support. The more feedback that we could give them on this process, the better they're going to be as an employee. Common challenges, and you will run into these, guaranteed. The emotional reaction, that is usually the feedback that I get. I told my employee I was having some issues with their performance. They became defensive and started crying. What do I do? You do have to reel it back in. And sometimes it's as easy as like, you're a great employee, I just really want to focus on this, and this is going to help your career. Make it's very difficult, but I don't want people to shy away from these, because possibly the recipient might get upset. I would say 90% of the time that's made up in your head, and the conversation does not go as tough as you thought, but there is a chance for that happening. If that does happen, again, you could say, is this conversation too tough to have right now? We could follow up tomorrow. I see you're upset. It's really how that employee is reacting, of how you're going to react. But stopping the meeting and regrouping the next day is totally okay. You do not have to go through this meeting with tears. That's not the intent. The intent is really work together to create solutions and build that trust, not this. And you don't want that to be the focus. So again, if you have to end the meeting and follow up again, please do so, but don't end the meeting and never follow up, just because we might be a little afraid of that emotional reaction. Possibly the person that's giving that tough feedback might be unclear. Giving feedback, especially tough feedback, sometimes you kind of stumble across your words a little bit. You might hesitate. Who knows? It's a tough conversation to have. So that's why you really want to be clear. You don't want to give any subjective feedback, like I thought this, or maybe this. You want to be clear and precise. And, I always say, follow up the meeting with, okay, are we on the same page? We talked about this issue. We have these goals. We have, some training that we're going to be doing, and then we're going to check in. Does that work for you? Again, it's just reiterating everything that we spoke about, because if you're not on the same page, it's going to be a tough one. Of course, fear of damaging relationships. This is also another tough one. Managers have hesitated, especially in the past that I've worked with, of just having these conversations. They're worried that their employee is going to be upset with them. Or let's take it another step. They're friends out of work, and now you have to incorporate that into work. How are you going to write up and discipline possibly a friend, right? How is that going to damage that relationship? So again, staying professional, clear, concise, and it's about work-related issues, that should help through that process, even if you have to reiterate that throughout the meeting. Remember, this is a professional environment. This has nothing to do with our relationship or our outside relationship. This has to do with this and this only. But that could potentially be an outcome of this. And then again, just as simple, the cultural differences, cultural norms, they're just different. I worked for a client once in the past that had an office in India. And I went to India and I visited the office. I had no idea of their cultural norms out there. So as easy as shaking someone's hand, that's not acceptable. But I was there to, unfortunately, let someone go. So I had to have a rundown. What's acceptable? I want to be respectful to this person, but how do I give them feedback? Or how do I give them, possibly a termination package, but I want to make sure there's no misunderstandings. And I definitely don't want no discomfort, especially based on culture. I'll do my part as a manager to understand what that is. And I think it's every manager's responsibility, especially if you have these cultural differences. But just be aware of that these are common challenges that will come up. I don't say that they might come up, they will come up. It's just a part of that tough feedback. And I say this is not just work, right? This is in your personal life too, giving tough feedback to possibly people in your family. It's all incorporated to these tough feedback conversations. Common conflict triggers, again, just little triggers. There could be, some personality clashes. Maybe there's already some animosity between two employees, and now an employee has to address and have a tough conversation. That could happen. Again, poor communication that leads to so many issues in the workplace, but definitely within this conflict resolution. And then just those unclear expectations. If your manager doesn't set those expectations for you, you're going to be lost. You're not going to know what you're doing. So if he set a goal for you, but you don't know how to get there, you don't even know what the goal is for, you're probably not going to be very engaged in that, versus your manager meeting with you, talking it through, getting you signed up for some training, having follow-up meetings with you, and then celebrating your accomplishments. Two completely different scenarios that really does set the tone for your culture. Employees will leave a bad manager before they leave a bad company. Overcoming that resistance. So I know really, pushing yourself through, preparing yourself for this tough conversation that you're going to have. You're going to know that there could be possible resistance. Maybe the employee doesn't see that from their perspective, but really understanding their perspective and understanding that root cause. What is it? Maybe I saw things a little differently. Can you explain to me why this is this way? Maybe it's a complete misunderstanding and we don't even have to have this conversation. Of course, reframe the feedback, try to stay as positive as you can, because the negative that they're going to hear is going to be probably most of all they hear. So be as positive as you can when you can, of course. Always be respectful. When I said earlier, never have these conversations in public, that is a huge no-no. You really just want to keep that respectful tone, private, and again, respectful. And involve employee. It's collaboration. Again, this is the time to build trust, collaborate them, let them know that they are part of the solution. It's not your way or the highway, it's your both ways. And I think that's the acceptable way to get through these goals, is just involving your employee. There's really no way else to get them learning and excited and happy to be there if you're just dictating to them what they need to do. And seeking solutions together, again, that collaborative approach. You want to talk about what happened, you want to ask the questions, identify those goals, create solutions, and then commit to that follow-up. If you've noticed, a lot of these processes are exactly the same. They very much translate into a lot of different processes and within HR. Base one, let them know. Two, train, support, follow up, and then commit to that action. It's really the same in any part, but the collaborative approach to this is really what's going to get you through that tough conversation. You're creating a solution that you work together, and that really means everything to that employee. And that's all I have for you today. We had a great presentation, really just on the tough stuff, but like I said in the past, I'd be happy to help. Any questions? I've gone into clients' offices and had these tough conversations, or maybe, help them through it. But if there's anything that you guys need, please reach out. And I am very excited to talk about the next webinar. Is really going to be focused on culture, which that's everything when it comes to HR. And that is May 7th at 12 p.m. So we're really excited about that. And again, culture, employee engagement, and training and development, everything that comes with that. So I'm excited to see you all May 7th. And if you have any questions, you feel free to reach out to Gabriela, Sophia, or myself. I'll be happy to help you.
Thank you so much. I don't know if there's any additional questions. from the participants at this time, but thank you so much. So helpful and like very clear goals of what business owners or managers can do. You're just making sure the appointments are made, the expectations are clear, and having those conversations. They're hard, but the sooner you do it, the better.
Yes,
So
yes,
thank you. And
absolutely.
don't offer to go have those conversations or everyone's gonna call you like, come fire somebody for me.
It happens. It's, but it's really interesting, these tough conversations. It keeps people from, moving their business forward, literally moving their business forward. That's how uncomfortable it is. So again, the more you do it, the more comfortable you feel, but it'll never be easy. And it's not supposed to be easy. You're giving tough feedback. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, we will send the PowerPoint for those that registered. Again, this will be on YouTube. It will be posted tomorrow, so everyone will have access to it. I see Sophia. Do you have any questions or comments, Sophia?
No, just making sure that, what we have the service that Francine provide for New Mexico MBDA business clients. So the 3 hours for free that we're giving away for small businesses, take advantage of that with Francine to ask any question that you will have about HR.
Yes. Thank you, Sophia.
Yes. Great services. I have lots of questions, but we have to prioritize the businesses. But if businesses don't take, I have questions for you, Francine. So thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Okay, well, everyone have a great afternoon. Thank you again, Francine. Great content. And I'll see you guys on May 7th.
See you then. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.